So I grew up in a townhouse. Some of you guys might live in condos or cute little cabins or maybe big, sprawling suburban contemporaries, but I want to let you in on a little secret. And that is that no matter where you call home, you also live in your great-grandparents' house. Spooky, huh? You call this your life. Obviously, it's not an actual physical structure, but it's real all the same. This house you live in is comprised of the stories that came from all the generations before you. Your own ancestors, sure, but history, society, culture, the media. We're talking about a pretty serious add-on situation here. And clearly, there was no architectural plan. This is just story after story piled one on top of another with very little regard for whether they make sense or go together, or hey, whether the original foundation is strong enough to hold all those stories up. When we stay unconscious, we're building in the dark. Now, I'm guessing there probably isn't anybody in this room who would buy a house without having it first professionally inspected from top to bottom. But I'm also willing to bet that almost no one here questioned a single thing when they bought into the house their family built. The last house I owned looked like it was built by crazy people. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was a cool house, but it had shelves all over the place at kind of funky, weird angles. It had a staircase that got narrower as you approached the bottom, like you were about to fall down the rabbit hole into Wonderland. It had a laundry chute at ankle level for like, what, elves? I don't know. The only thing that was crazier than this house was how long I lived with its dysfunctions, because they were there. And that's what we do when we swallow the stories, hook, line, and sinker. We live with crazy stuff. We live with stuff that doesn't make sense. We live with stuff that doesn't even belong to us. It's like having your grandpa's funky old chair in the middle of your living room, but you can't see it. You sure notice when you trip over it, though, right? It's like, oh, what was that? Oh, grandpa's old stuff. I thought we worked through all that. Apparently not. I grew up with two diametrically opposed stories. One, that I was super awesome and super smart, and I could do anything I wanted to do. Two, life's kind of sucky and disappointing, so don't expect too much. Okay, so I can do anything, but it probably won't work out. Okay. So there I am, one foot flooring the accelerator and the other foot jamming on the brakes. And I'm not going anywhere, and I have no idea why, until I stop and I think, that's not my story. That's my father's story. And he probably got it from his parents, and they probably got it from their parents. And if I hadn't unpacked those two stories and questioned their logic, we're awesome. Life sucks. I'd still be stuck back there. More importantly, I'd be teaching the same thing to my own teenage son. You're too sensitive. Early bird gets the worm. Never trust anybody over 30. You're just not athletic, honey. True? False. We get told these stories when we're really young by the people we love and depend on the most, so guess what? We tend to believe them. I wanted to be like my mother so badly when I was a child that I was in my teens before I figured out that my favorite color wasn't blue like hers, but green, a color she pretty much hated. Now, if we can unconsciously carry somebody else's story about something as basic as our favorite color, imagine what else we're toting around. We act out stories all the time that don't belong to us. They're about our parents, or our grandparents, or some guy our grandparents knew. But if we hear these stories often enough, we internalize them to the point where we don't recognize them as other, like Grandpa's chair. They just feel true. They feel like a part of us. Before you know it, we've got mice in that metaphorical attic. We've got millipedes in the basement. Now what? Well, the only thing for it is to take a flashlight and go take a look. But oh man, we're resistant to that because it might be icky. There might be termites in our foundation. And if we found them, well, we'd have to do something about it. We'd have to change. We might have to pick a different story. But here's the thing. Scary stories, spooky thoughts, limiting beliefs, they kind of lose their power in the light. In fact, sometimes they look pretty silly. So I get that it's frightening to think about tearing open your ceiling or ripping up your floorboards or yanking open the closets. But it's the only way to figure out which stories are relevant and true for you and which stories, you might kind of want to let go. We are storytellers, we humans. We shape our reality with the stories that we tell and the stories that we believe. But if we're not really paying attention, without intentional awareness, we're creating a pretty random reality for ourselves, one that may have very little to do with who we are or what we want. Now, teenagers, and more than a few adults I know, sometimes cope with this by just rejecting everything from the past wholesale. It's out of here. That's an option. But to do so risks losing out on generations of hard-won wisdom. So the only real way to discern the stories that wound from the stories that serve, the stories that feel true from the stories that ring false, is to flip on the light switch, put on your home inspector's hat, and take a look. It's your great-grandparents' house, but you don't have to live there. Or stay, make some modifications. Careful about load-bearing walls. Sometimes they're there for a reason. Sometimes they support you in ways that aren't immediately obvious. But go ahead, walk through, story by story. Who built this thing? Why is it here? Is it useful? Is it beautiful? Is it still working? Do I want to keep it? You know what? You get to decide. Are you really bad at math? Do some people have all the luck and they've used it up and you don't get any? Is money the root of all evil? Why is that laundry chute by my ankles? You're the architect of your life now. You're the builder of your own dreams. You decide. We are guardians of not just our own, but a collective reality. We're next up at bat. That means we are the storytellers and the story builders, not just for ourselves, but for generations to come. So inspect your houses. Take it seriously, inspect them carefully, because we can choose to perpetuate unexamined echoes from the past, or we can choose to pass on conscious wisdom. I know what stories I want to tell. How about you? Thank you.